don't know, I am Jennifer, cocktail evangelist from Muddle, and we also have...
I'm Brent. We are here to spread the good news about booze.
That's right. And this week we are going to talk about infused spirits. This is some higher level stuff, y'all. So I really commend you for showing up for this. It's not difficult, but it is kind of step intensive. So Brent, go ahead and take us where we need to go today.
Sure. So today we're going to cover a couple different ways to infuse flavors into your spirits. And this is a way, it definitely will lead to more advanced cocktails because you're not just using a base spirit, you're manipulating the base spirit a little bit and then adding more flavors. So the cocktails we're going to make with these are going to be a little more complex and delicious. So we're going to cover two different methods of infusing in this class. One is your straightforward just steeping. So you just take your spirit and you put your fruit or citrus zest or pepper directly into the spirit and just simply let it sit for a while. And then you taste it and blend it down from there. The second is more of an advanced technique called fat washing. So fat washing at its most basic is when you take a fat, like today we're going to do a brown butter rum. So you take a brown butter, mix it with rum, you shake it up, let it sit for several hours overnight, shaking it periodically, and then you strain the fat out and you're left with just the spirit. And there's some chemistry that happens in that when you do that, and we'll cover that after we make a cocktail, but as we always like to do, we like to make so this first cocktail we're doing is called the Raised on Promises. I think, is that in the...
It is. It's showing up in the chat right now. This first cocktail, Brent's he'll talk about the cocktail in just a second, but the method that we're using on this cocktail is that we are going to fat wash on this cocktail, but we are, instead of infusing the spirit in a bottle, we're going to infuse the flavor into the cocktail shaker itself. And there is a specific reason that we're doing that with this one.
So yes, I would call this a quasi or quick fat wash. The recipe for this is 2 ounces of rye. Today I'm using the George Dickel rye. George Dickel is a Tennessee whiskey. This actually is made in Indiana, though. I think they're purchasing from MGP in Indiana for their rye. They make some of the best ryes in the world. So it's 2 ounces of rye, 3/4 of an ounce of lapsang souchong syrup, which is lapsang souchong is a really smoky black tea. So that's adding a little bit more complexity to the cocktail. Then we have 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice and then just 1 drop of sesame oil. So if we were to look at this if we were to classify this cocktail, I would classify this in the same family as a whiskey sour. It's a sour because you have your spirit, your citrus juice, and a sugar. So it's basically a straightforward sour. It just it has a few twists. Almost every step of the way, we throw something different in there. And one cool thing about this is it has a special rim, which is made from sesame candies. So this is, I think sometimes they call them honey sesame candies. It's just a hard sesame candy. The bag I have, they just call them Sesame Candy Crunch. And you can find those usually in your Middle Eastern section of your grocery store, your finer grocery stores. So to make that, we just unwrap them, put a few in you can do this in a blender, or I have my old workhorse Cuisinart food processor here, and then you blend those up. So
Shannon just had a good question and asked if it mattered if the oil is toasted. Not that I'm aware, but honestly, Shannon, I don't think I've ever seen sesame oil that wasn't toasted. I'm not sure. I'm sure that you can find it someplace at maybe in an Asian market, but none of the grocers that I've seen it. It's usually just toasted sesame oil.
That's what I have. That's what I prefer. And we'll actually talk about toasting later in this class when we talk about brown butter. When it toasts, there's a chemical change, and it adds different layers of flavor to the sesame, and I think it makes it more delicious. Probably have about 8 or 10 of these in there, and that's all I'm going to do for today. And then it also gets a good healthy pinch or two of your kosher salt. So I'm going to turn off my volume while I blend this. You just hit it, blend it a few times. You don't want to over blend it, especially in the summertime when it's humid, because then it gets too powdery, too much like flour, and it just like forms a block. You want to have a little bit of chunk, a little bit of texture, so it stays loose and you're able to do it. So let me mute myself here, and I'm
This
going to
cocktail, when we developed this cocktail, this was for Southern Crossings Pottery Festival that happens every year in Louisville, Kentucky, and we started collaborating with them a couple of years ago and figured out that everybody's specific artwork inspired really unique things for us. So when we would look at a piece of work, we would say, you know, that reminds me of a sour, or that reminds me of a Manhattan, or that reminds me of whatever. And then we figured out that we could do this really cool collaborative cocktail event where we did 12 different cocktails inspired by all of the work of those 12 artists. So this particular cocktail was inspired by Lindsay Ostritter, and she makes stunning work. I should have put a cup of hers on the table, but it looks almost metallic, almost like iron when you look at her work. It's so cool. And this was like this total like Midwest, you know, Tom Petty, American Girl. Those are what the lyrics are from, that song that she was raised on. She was an American girl raised on promises, right? So this was the cocktail that we did for that. And there was Brent, when he was playing with this cocktail, he did the sesame oil in the rye whiskey and figured out that it was just too much. Oh, there's her work.
Yes, I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's not reading very well on the camera, but this is what her work inspired it. There's a lot of, it looks like almost like some weathered iron or something, but it's an awesome base. And I have of hers. So I finished the, I got enough of it ground down at least to do a rim on our cocktail. So just a few pulses. It gets down to a nice texture for rimming here, which we're pretty straightforward.
You really just kind of want to spoon it in your mouth. It's
Totally.
ridiculous. And if we, when we have events with it, I have to like say, you can't eat the rim. You can't eat the rim at this event. So yeah, it's pretty yummy. I am poured up and ready to go. This particular piece is a collaborative piece between Kristen Kiefer and Matt Long. They did a pottery show together, a potter's retreat actually a few years ago, and did a collaborative piece there. They were presenters, and it's one of my favorites. It's a big cup. We like that.
And I am putting this in a Stephen Cheek salt-fired, handmade salt-fired. We're big fans of Stephen Cheek.
We have more cups of his and trays. We have some appetizer trays in different sizes that are coming to the shop soon, so that'll be good. Okay, this cocktail is not for everybody. It's a pretty sophisticated cocktail, and it's got a lot going on in it. Okay, like it's not just a sour. We've got the sesame oil. We've got the smoke from the Lapsang Souchong tea syrup, and then you've got that really good little bit of citrus that comes in at the end and kind of makes it all nice and clean and tightens it up for you. But it's a yummy one. And if you want this cocktail, if you live in the Louisville area, they have this cocktail on the menu at Board and You right now. So you can have this cocktail. I see Brian shaking his head over there. He's a Raised on Promises fan. So we were thinking of him when we put it on the menu at Board and You.
And Board and You is in New Albany, Indiana.
It is, yes. There are lots of yummy making metal things on their menu.
All right, so 2 ounces of rye. We have 3/4 of an ounce of lemon and 3/4 of an ounce of our tea syrup, and then 1 drop of sesame oil. I could not locate my dropper, so I might overdo this. Fingers crossed. 1 drop is perfect. 2 drops is a little much. 3 drops just love it. So I managed to get exactly 1 drop. I'm going to add ice to this and shake. So I'm going to turn off my my mic.
Yes, we did. Yes, there was a text question that just came in. Yes, Sammy, it is the sesame rim. Okay, so fat washing spirits. We have different ways to do that. As Brent said earlier, that we can do that with, we can do it inside the spirit. We can do it inside the cocktail shaker. And the fat washing and the steeping are two totally different things. Okay. At the end of the day, the most important thing is that the oils that are coming out of whatever you're putting into your spirit are what are grabbing onto all of that flavor. Okay. So the alcohol, and the higher the proof that your alcohol is, the deeper and more intense the flavor profile is of whatever you're steeping into it. Okay. Which is why today I had Everclear pure grain alcohol on there at 190 proof. It's just straight distillate. That's all it is. There's no cut to that at all. Now we're going to cut that with water later on, but we're going to let it pull all of that intense flavor that it can as early as possible. Brent.
I'm back. I got my cocktail ready. So I wasn't talking when I did it. To rim, I just cut a little smiley face in the top of my lemon and hit half my rim, and then rolled it in the sesame rim powder that we prepared. And I like to do it only on half of the glass because not everybody likes rim, and especially if you're using a rim that has any sort of hot pepper in it, because that can really get on your lips and start to burn. So I like to do it just on half, but this rim is so delicious. There we are. And those are, it's a really cool cocktail. Lots of flavors going on. Really well balanced though. Nothing really overpowers with this. You can even, I'm using this rye is, I don't think it's 90 proof. So that's about average proofage, little high average. You could even go up a higher proofage on that. Like your old overholt bonded wouldn't be terrible in this cocktail. So, what's up, lost you?
What do you think of the cocktail? Thoughts?
Is anybody making it, or are we still going?
It's good. I could not find the tea in time, so I just went with really strong black tea that I had in the cupboard. And still delicious. I also couldn't find any sesame candies here in my part of town, so I just went with the sweet and salty rim that you guys had us make a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Also delicious.
Good. Yeah, those. I think in the email that there was a link on Amazon. You can find them on Amazon. They'll deliver them to your door. But I know I was having a hard time locally too. Luckily, I had rim already. But yeah, it's a pretty specific flavor profile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was going to say that. I don't know if we said that in the email. If you can't find the specific tea, because it is a little tricky to find, you can order it on Amazon, or you can just use nice dark, either English breakfast or Irish breakfast tea.
Right on, lots of flavors. Brian says they use basil syrup. Still good. Somebody's been making gimlets.
Yeah. There are no wrong answers.
True story. All right, let's talk about rum, y'all. This spirit is ridiculous. When this gets done, fat washing, you're gonna be like, you're just really gonna want to put a straw down in it. It's and you're like, whatever about a cocktail. All right, Brent, talk to us about the rum.
Sure. So with fat washing, what you do, you're adding your fat to your spirit, shaking it a few times, and then a lot of times you'll throw it in the freezer or the fridge so that the fat solidifies, and then you strain it out. The one thing that fat does, it has some proteins that bond with some flavor elements in your spirit, and those are called polyphenols. And those flavors a lot of times are, we're most familiar with them in tannins. If you're a red wine drinker, that's what dries your mouth out, makes you your teeth feel dry. It's also in tea. That's one way, actually, when I've been in wine trainings before, to illustrate tannins to people who aren't familiar with tannins, they'll take a tea bag, like a tea bag, and have you bite on it. And the way that makes your mouth feel, it dries your gums out a little bit, dries your teeth out. That's a tannin. So those are in your wine. It's also in wood. So any of your spirits that are aged in a barrel are going to pick up tannins, and that's what gives bourbon and rye its woody flavor, its oaky flavor. And so those can be in spirits. If you want to sort of tone those down a little bit, make your spirit a little more well-rounded and not quite as astringent, that's why you would do fat wash. You can also use it to cover up an inexpertly crafted spirit because it can hide a lot of faults in the spirit. I've used it before. I made a milk punch once where you fat wash with milk and then you actually curdle the milk in the spirit and strain it out. And I used a barrel-proof brandy, and you couldn't taste the alcohol. I mean, you knew it was brandy, but you couldn't tell that it was, 110, 120 proof spirit because of that fat wash. Took a lot of the harshness out of the
You can also use, so there are lots of different ways that you can fat wash, right? We've talked about the sesame oil today. We're getting ready to use the brown butter. Also, lots of things that happen here in Louisville with bourbon. They do bone marrow washes on them. They do bacon. You can find bacon fat washed whiskeys all the time. Anything that has a fat, you can add it to a spirit and then, infuse that flavor in there. So the sky's the limit on, and especially if you're only doing a cup or two at a time, it's an easy thing to experiment with and it not, cost you a lot of money and you not have to dump a lot of stuff if it turns out terrible.
One pretty cool thing I was thinking about earlier is you can use avocado oil. You can also use olive oil. And I was thinking about doing a fat washed gin so that you could do almost like a dirty martini without the salt. You get the olive flavor in there in your gin. So it's really fun. It's a nice tool to have in your kit, and it's fun to goof around with. So the next thing we're gonna do here is the
rum.
Brown butter rum. Just getting in the right place here. So the first step in this process is to brown your butter. I think both Jennifer and I are using one of our favorite butters today. Do you have a favorite butter, Jennifer?
Kerrygold, because we're not savages, people. It's the best butter out there.
Absolutely. My 7-year-old even knows that. She'll see the package. She's a big fan.
She was raised right.
Yeah, well. So browning the butter is it's a pretty simple process. It's just like browning anything, toasting nuts or toasting bread. You go through the process and it's easy to get to that not done, burnt. So the hardest part is just watching it and just sitting there stirring stuff. I always recommend using a stainless steel either pan or pot, and that's because if you use like a nonstick skillet, you can't see the butter change color as well. So you're going to end up burning your butter. It's simple, straightforward process. Put it on a medium high-ish to start. Once the butter gets melted and it starts getting a little foamy, crank it down to medium. And once it's all melted, just start stirring it. And whenever you use stainless, this is a little bit of culinary science here. You don't want to use two pieces of stainless together. So like if you have a wire whisk in a stainless pan, you don't want to do that, because that can actually make your dairy products discolored and a little bit gray. And nobody wants gray butter, we want brown butter. So as you're cooking this, the water's evaporating out of the butter and the milk solids are falling out and coming down to the bottom of the pan, and they're starting to toast. They go through what's called the Maillard reaction. I'm probably slaughtering it, even though French is the only foreign language I have any knowledge of. And that is named after the scientist that discovered it or described it around 1912. His name was Louis Camille Maillard. And that it's the reaction is that toasting, that it's what sugar and turns it into caramel. It's what turns a slice of bread into a piece of glorious toast. It actually, when things start to brown like that, there are a lot of chemical reactions. Amino acids through some changes, and it makes things taste better. It adds more depth of flavor to whatever you are toasting. And it's also, some people think when you're cooking meat, you sear it in order to seal the moisture in, and that's actually not why. You're actually trying to get this browning on there because it gives that whole hunk of meat for you. It gives it that really lovely, warm, toasty flavor. Love it, our pot roast. So it's a pretty simple process. You just stir and stir and stir. Keep your eye on it. As soon as you see it start turning brown, I usually will start lifting it off the heat, put it back on the heat so that you have a little more control over browning it. And then you get to a point where you're really browning those little bits of milk solids. So I don't know how well this color's going to read here. But this turns the butter is nice and straw color. But you can see that's a nice sort of like a very light milk chocolate is what I describe it as, I guess, for the milk solids. So for the recipe, we're gonna do about a cup of the butter, and you really want to get all of those milk solids in the bottom.
All of it, that looks like sludge that has to go in there. It's so good.
That's where the flavor is. So the butter goes through the king, picks up some of those flavors from the toasty milk solids. Those milk solids are really what have the flavor. This is delicious, and brown butter is amazing. Put this on toss a little sage in there, put it on some ravioli, pumpkin ravioli, and it's amazing. Slice of garlic, super simple, but total fall flavor. So we are, getting a little ahead where we are moving to the fall holiday or fall season, and this is perfect, which is fall. So it's a stick of butter and then about a cup of aged rum. I'm using Cruzan rum, and this is their it has, see, there's a little color in it. It's been in the barrel for a little while, so this putting the in the butter, fat washing it, gonna round out some of the flavors that you get from the barrel. I just have this in a jar, put the lid on tightly, and shake it. So you do that a couple times. Just leave it at room temperature. It's going to infuse, the flavors are going to infuse quicker at room temperature than in the fridge. You can leave this out overnight. Actually, European butter has a high enough fat content that it doesn't technically have to be refrigerated. Probably lasts a little longer if it's refrigerated, but it won't go bad. It won't raise by sitting on your counter.
Shannon had a question and said a cup of bread ratio is 1-to-1. Yes, cup of butter to cup of spirit.
Yep, 8 ounces is a cup, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a sticks 8 ounces. Yes.
Yes, a cup. Yeah, and it's really the light's a little hot in here, but it is it's really gorgeous. And that the browning of the butter though, like it literally, you can smell that sweet spot when it happens on the stove. And if you don't catch it, like that's when it's sweet, you got to pull it. Don't wait, because it goes from perfect to burnt like that. So
Not done burnt.
yes, exactly. All right, so then what's going to happen with the fat washing is that you're going to shake this today. You're going to leave it out, and then tomorrow you're going to shake it, okay? And then on day 3, Brent, you think on day 3 we should put it in the fridge?
You can do, I did, the last batch I just did it for 1 day.
Okay.
So I just shook it 3 or 4 times, left it overnight, and then put it in the fridge. I think there's most of the flavor infusing and most of the fat washing is going to happen in your first 8 hours or so, and you may get more over time, but it's whatever fits in your schedule, really, as far as how long you leave it in there.
So what's going to happen next is that when you put that in the fridge, those fat solids are going to congeal, and they're going to rise to the top, okay? And then you're going to just be left with this beautiful spirit that's underneath. Next week, we are going to strain this together and make cocktails with it, okay? So if I were you, I would leave it in your fridge or your freezer, whatever you prefer, wherever you have room. And then next week, we'll strain and use this in a cocktail together. All right. Let's move to tequila.
Yes.
Okay.
So the next, we'll do a real simple steep is our next process. So for this, you're just going to need your spirit. I'm going to do a little bit of vodka and tequila. I'm going to do, I actually have a ghost pepper plant growing in my yard. And I got the first mostly ripe ghost pepper today off of my ghost pepper vine. I'm
And
going to
you
use.
couldn't have planned that timing better.
No, right?
I am just using traditional jalapenos. I'm not a hero about some pepper and some hot. Okay, so I like a little bit of heat, but I don't want it overwhelming. All right, and that is part of what I love about infusing tequila with peppers is that it's a great way to control the heat in margaritas for people across the board. It doesn't just have to be one kind of hot. If somebody likes a lot of heat, you've got a completely pepper infused tequila that you can do. If they just want some heat, you can cut it with regular tequila, and then it's not, the margarita is not as hot. I am adding all of the seeds in mine and the membranes. There's all that oil that's going on in that pepper. So
I just cut the very top off that has the where this. One thing about most peppers, most of your heat is going to be found in your stems and membranes inside. Ghost peppers are actually different, and they have the capsaicin spread out through the entire pepper. That's one of the reasons why they're one of the hottest peppers on the planet. So I'm going to do about a half. One other thing with ghost pepper, really with any pepper that you're using, it's not a bad idea to put on some gloves. I wear contacts, and I've learned several times the hard way that once you work with a pepper, you can wash your hands 20, 30 times. And when you put your contacts in, you're going to cry because there's, or if you touch another sensitive area of your body, you're going to cry.
This is what mine's looking like. Peppers are in there. I did a couple cups of tequila, 2 whole jalapenos with seeds and membranes, all of the goodness going on in there, and then I'll cap it. Now, I'm going to tell you, when you do these, you need to label your things. If you do not label these things, I promise you, you're going, I mean, we forget all the time. We put something in the fridge and go, oh, I'll remember what that is. You will not remember. Now, the brown butter, you're going to remember because it's going to have a big layer of fat along the top of it. But I would label what kind of peppers you're doing in it. I would label the date that you started it, all of those things, because science has to be repeatable, right? So take notes about what you're changing in your recipes as you go. If you decide that you're going to do this with peppers and you start with 4 instead of 2, and then you taste it and you think it's too hot, then you need to make notes about that so that the next time you do that, you can repeat the exact process and get the sweet spot of where you want
it. One thing with a lot of times what I'll do is make a really strong infusion, almost like an extraction, and then blend it down. So.
And Brent, talk to us about the difference between an infusion and an extraction.
I think for me, it's just a matter of the strength. Like an infusion, tea is more like an infusion. And if you put 1 tea bag in, that's an infusion. If you put 4 tea bags in to 1 cup, that's an extraction. Your spirits, the higher proofage, as Jennifer mentioned, is going to extract more. Just the alcohol really strips all the oils out of whatever you're infusing with. And so the higher proofage you use, the more extraction you're going to get. I think both of these, I'm using 100% blue agave tequila and vodka. Both are either 80 or 90. So this, you can leave sit for longer. So this is 80 proof.
So we always, 100% of the time, 100% blue agave tequila. Do not get anything except 100% blue agave tequila. That means Jose Cuervo needs to go down the drain. Okay. The 100% of blue agave it's going to be the smoothest, even like, and this is a like $16 bottle, El Jimador. It's delicious. 100% blue agave. You can find really good spirits for inexpensive amounts of money. So.
Absolutely. And since we're infusing, especially if you're fat washing, you're infusing, it's going to cover some faults. Some things. You don't want to use your finest tequila and put your ghost pepper in there because you're not going to be able to taste that delicious tequila. You're going to be able to taste pepper flavor.
Incidentally, this is one of our favorite things to do. I mean, like, we love cocktails, but the R&D that goes into what would happen if we did X, Y, and Z is that our brains light up with this. So it's really fun to be able to share this with you all today and what the process looks like when we really start to create cocktails. This would be an entire column all its own, spirits, whether we're infusing the spirit, whether we're steeping the spirit, whether the proof of a spirit absolutely goes into the deciding factors of what we're doing with cocktails. So this is a really cool part of the process, and I'm really glad that we got to share all this with you today. So
Absolutely.
how are we? How are we doing on, everybody got their pepper stuff? Anybody need more time on their tequila? We doing okay? All right, we are moving onward and upward. So our final thing that we're doing today is one of my very favorite things in the world. It's limoncello. And the history of limoncello, like anything that has to do with alcohol, is a little spotty. The story goes that there was a woman, and her name was, let me tell you, she was in Italy. Limoncello originates from the south of Italy, along the Amalfi Coast, Sorrento, Naples, that whole area, Capri, that whole area down there. So it's said that it was not called limoncello until 1988, when it was registered by a businessman named Massimo Canale. And the liquor is supposed to originate from the beginning of the 1900s. Small boarding house on the island of Azura, where the lady Maria Antonia Faracci took care of a beautiful garden of lemons. And then during the post-war period, post-World War I, her nephew opened a bar near there. And the specialty of that bar was this lemon liqueur that he made with his nana's recipe. So fast forward to 1988, the nephew, his son is Massimo Canale. And he started a handmade production of limoncello then and registered the trademark. Now, there's rumor that it goes well beyond, earlier than the 1900s. It's said that, that even the priests and the friars were drinking it before that. The peasants were drinking it in the morning to ward off the chill. But according to a British journalist named Lee Marshall, who had been in Italy since 1984, he confirmed that the term limoncello was not used really until 1988. So who knows, how long it's really been around, but it's absolutely delicious. This particular recipe that we're getting ready to do has a very special place in my heart. My husband and I were in Italy last summer, and we were doing the Amalfi Coast at the very end of our trip. We had been away for a couple of weeks, and we had been on Capri, and it was just stunning. And Sorrento is known for all of the limoncello there. There's all of this tasting, and I just looked at him. I was like, I cannot do any more people. Like, I'm so full up. So we went home, and we were staying in this great Airbnb, and the woman who owned the Airbnb also owned an olive oil press company that was situated right behind our Airbnb, and there was a restaurant there. She said, you have to come to eat. So we went the last night, and we're looking at Mount Vesuvius, and we're having this amazing dinner, and this wonderful, Papa, he was just this older guy. He was so great. He was waiting on us, and we finished dinner, and I looked at him, I said, do you all have any limoncello? And he says, do we have limoncello? We make the limoncello here. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. So he brings the limoncello over, and we tasted the limoncello. I've never tasted limoncello that tasted like that. the trees were on the property that they did the limoncello recipe from. So I said, is it possible for us to purchase some of this? He brings a liter over, gifts us the liter, and then gives me the recipe. So you are about to have a traditional Italian limoncello recipe from Sorrento from this fantastic family. So that is what is happening. I am going to copy and paste this recipe in the chat.
So one difference, being in Illinois, I don't have lemon trees growing in my backyard. And if I did, I'd only get like 1 or 2 lemons a year before they died. But you want to try to find the highest quality lemons you can, probably organic, because conventionally raised is fine. That's actually, I couldn't find organic lemons. I could find sesame candies, but not organic lemons. If they're sprayed with pesticides, it goes on the outside of the fruit. They say it washes off or doesn't leave enough residue to affect you eating it. But since usually people juice the lemons, they throw away the rind. They may, the science behind that may not be exactly right. I just bought the best looking lemons I could find. And then I soaked them in a little bit of vinegar water and then sort of scrubbed them under hot water out of the sink because your citrus, all citrus is sprayed with it's a food grade wax. And it's perfectly fine. It just mentally, I want to try to get that off.
I did find little teeny tiny organic lemons from Trader Joe's. They are teeny tiny and they are not looking gorgeous, but I agree with Brent. If you do not have organic, I absolutely do the process that he just said to you, but I would recommend organic if you can.
But if not, no big deal. I mean, that's what I'm using. So one method of doing this is just taking your vegetable peeler and peeling it. I did that to some lemons that had some bad spots that I cut off. So you just end up with peels like that. You want to try to get as much of the yellow and leave as much of the white behind. The pith is can be a little bit bitter. And like I said, we're using a high proof alcohol. It can pull that bitterness out. So come on there. Try to get as little as possible. So I have zested a lot of fruit in my time, and after 3 or 4 lemons, your hand starts to get really tired. I came up with this method of using an apple peeler to just peel the zest off. So this has 3 prongs. I try to center the lemon on it. Has a little suction cup, suctions to the table. You can get these on Amazon really cheaply. See it. The one thing is, this is an apple peeler and corer. So there's a part here that the apple moves out. It slices through and pulls the core out. I just loosen that off, let it down to the side. To your table nicely. There's a little arm here that has a little sharp loop, and you can adjust the depth on that. So I have it set, it's probably about 1/8 of an inch gap. So just that much into the lemon. Otherwise, it's going to get too much pith. So you just crank this. As you crank it, the lemon moves down. It's just a screw. And then you start getting to get it started, you have to support the lemon a little bit. But you start getting this really just nice long, how does it look better? Get it all. Just a nice long piece of zest. If you can, do it over a bowl where you're collecting the lemon. And if you're peeling, definitely do that over the bowl, because as you peel, you're going to rupture some of those oil pockets. It's going to spray in the air. You want that to settle back down. That's what you're trying to get out of the zest. You want that to settle into the bowl that you're using. It smells great. You'll get it on your hands. It's really amazing, but really the purpose of this process is to get it into the liquor. So try to do it over the bowl. And this, you can see, this is really quick work.
Brent has a magic touch with that. Don't let him fool you like that's real easy, okay? I butcher that fruit, but it has saved us hours of time.
Just takes it down to where you have all the zest off of it. And then you use these to juice. Some recipes I've seen, they take the juice from the lemons and put it in the limoncello. I don't think that Jennifer's Italian grandfather did that.
No, there is no juice in this limoncello. It is just the oil from the rind in the grain alcohol. And it is we're going to let that steep. Now, they have a 2-week steep on this. We're just going to do a week. Okay. It's going to be fine. And then we'll do this recipe next week, but the kilogram of sugar is about 5 cups roughly. Okay. And we will do all of that next week. And we will also cut it with water so that we're not dying with 190 proof alcohol. You're welcome.
I'm going to use my big ball jar. It does say ball, not mason, because we're close to Indiana where they're made. How many lemons is in the recipe, Jennifer? I'm sorry.
It has 7 rinds. Because mine were teeny tiny, I used about 14. So 7 rinds.
The lemons that they have in Italy are definitely different than these. I've seen people use Meyer lemons before in limoncello. Would give a totally different flavor. I think I would prefer just a standard lemon, actually. But I think it's a Seville. No, it's a Seville orange. I think it's also a Seville red.
Yeah, the lemons are definitely different, and they it's that terroir. You know, when you taste food from a location, it takes on the characteristics of that location. And it's the lemons are glorious there. They taste like sunshine and the hot sun and sea and all of the things that go into, you know, the south coast of Italy. So we're going to cover that. So you're just going to grab your other container, whatever container you're using, throw your lemons in, cover it with the grain alcohol. And then we're going to let that sit too. We have all of this loveliness that this makes, looking at all of the containers of steeping alcohol, like my lizard brain is so happy and satisfied with that. That's very satisfying to look at for me. Almost as good as looking at like when you can food and you're looking at all the jars of all the fresh food, or the freezer when you've put up food. Yeah, it's so satisfying. We have 3 really amazing cocktails that we're doing with these next week. I am going to, so for those of you who did the $35 or $40 ticket this week, your product is coming to you. We will ship those out on Monday. We were still deciding on the last cocktail that we were going to do, so I was on pause about what we were sending. If you, there will be cucumber, there will be, I'm not sure. There will be a kit. If you have full things, I'll send an email. If you want something other than what we're sending, if you want just one 16-ounce bottle, or you want a kit of 3 things that you know, just let me know. We're glad to send all of that to you. I don't believe that we had any barware this week from anyone, but definitely the product. So that'll all go out. And then next Saturday, we will pull all these back in and we will strain all of these. And we will use them in delicious cocktails. Yeah, I'm like, the rum is making me so happy. I'm side-eyeing it right now.
Instead of Everclear, I used a Polish pure grain alcohol they call it a rectified spirit, and it is actually 192 proof, so it's 1% higher than Everclear, and it was $1 cheaper than Everclear. But really, it's just whatever pure grain alcohol you can find. This is called spirit.
Does anyone have any questions or comments about anything that's happened so far today? Did you get them made? Was the pacing okay for y'all? I wanted to make sure that everybody got what they needed.
Yeah, I have a question about the lemons. I could juice them all right now after I peel the rind off, but if I wrap them up, could I just freeze the lemons whole until I need to use them for something? Have you guys ever experimented with that?
I haven't frozen them whole. I've juiced them and frozen the juice before. They'd probably be easier to juice once they're frozen and thawed, because ice actually the crystals form little spears and it pokes through all the packages of juice. Mm-hmm. So it would probably, my concern would be that it would just turn to mush when you tried to squeeze it, and it would just go through. So you can definitely juice it now and freeze the juice. or use it in more raised on promises, which is what I'm gonna.
Just drink more, is what you're saying.
You could also make a non-alcoholic lemonade,
Mm-hmm.
non-alcoholic honey lavender lemonade if you have a honey lavender elixir at your house.
Clearly. Also, if you are, so I don't know if you all have KitchenAid mixers at your house, but KitchenAid makes a $29 juice attachment that is magic. It fits right in that little KitchenAid logo right on the top there. That unscrews at the side. You pull it out. You slide the juicer in, and it makes. I mean, I can go through 10 pounds of lemons in less than 15 minutes when I do that. It is so fast. Amazon, here I come. That's exactly right, Brian. Yes, it could come to you on Amazon or Bed Bath & Beyond today if you wanted to go.
I think I got mine. It was either at Target or Meijer. So they're pretty readily available. And I use it more than I use the stupid pasta attachment.
True story.
We also, as we always say, we love feedback. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. Also, let us know what you want to see coming up. I mean, I think we have shrubs on the books after this. Is that the last class?
Shrubs and infusions is the last one we have on the books. Now, also, I know that folks have got people going back to school, and I know that there is a little bit of like screen fatigue happening with people who are online all day, every day. So please let us know what that looks like. Would you rather just go to one day a month? Would you rather wait and take a break until October, end of October, when the holidays are starting to roll around? I mean, we have some great holiday recipes and some really fun fall cocktails too, but this is not about us, it's about you. So tell us what you want, and we are glad to deliver that in any way. Everything that we have talked about today, from the peeler to the juicer to any other tools that we've used, I will include those links to Amazon in your email, your follow-up email. Excuse me. Sorry. And the playlist that we did from today. Our playlist for Infused Spirits today are covers. So we liked the originals, but we really like what people add to those originals. So that will also come in your follow-up email.
It's pretty long. There are a lot of covers out there. I think there are also some that are the original version, where the cover version is more popular than the original.
Yes, Fancy being one of the Rebus Fancy. That's the one that comes to mind on that one. Okay, we appreciate y'all so much. Big cheers, y'all, to you. We will see you next Saturday, 1 week from today at 4 o'clock. And actually, Brent and I will be together in the same space next Saturday. So
right here.
Right there.
Probably will be right here. Big enough for both of us. I'll try to get a better picture on the back there. So.
That's right. I'll fix that. Okay.
I'll flex in and hang up the Making Muddle banner.
All right. Cheers, y'all. Thanks so much. Have
Cheers.
a good week. We'll see you soon.
See ya.